It's the morning after the general elections. We're taking a look at events that transpired yesterday, just highlighting some of them, and still waiting on INEC Solole Osaze-Uzi to just come in and let's see what INEC thinks about some of these matters. But you know, INEC not waiting for us in some instances. For instance, fresh elections, we understand, are to be conducted in some wards that had issues with card readers in Guaram local government area of Jigawa State. Well, INEC did confirm that to our correspondent, saying that the elections will be inconclusive without those results. So that's INEC saying elections in Jigawa State will be inconclusive if fresh elections are not conducted in some wards that had challenges with the card readers in Guaram local government area of Jigawa State. Gentlemen, this is part of what has been highlighted this morning, where INEC needs to be specific. Well, yes, much as Samson did highlight that it may take them some time to collate some of all of these specifics and take a decision on them. But we can see that with Jigawa specifically, they've taken a decision. So many will be thinking they escalate this to several other areas.
Osun State, where that INEC office was also burnt down.
There you go.
In the Solo area and in Okota in Nago Palace area.
Yeah, much I think they said that they will hold fresh elections in those areas. But you know, the question that people are also asking is, will they hold it in good time such that the observers will be there? And secondly, they need to massively assure the people that security will be present, because if people have been traumatized already, tendency is that some of them may not want to go out there and go again.
Like what happened in Oyo State, where a 25-year-old was killed simply because he wanted to cast his vote.
Who won't want to go out there again?
And the ripple effect is that for people who have traveled to those areas, will they still be there to cast their votes?
To ensure that in the event that
to
they
be
did,
part of the process before thinking of going back to their base.
But you know, bringing it back to the military is not above the law. This is a country of rule of law, not that of force. And so when, even in Lagos, we had some instances where some persons were held up, and you know that all of this was time-bound, accreditation process, 8 to 2. If you're not accredited within those periods, you cannot even join the line anymore. So if they held you up and you were not able to get there in good time, it may speak to some of these challenges. But moving forward about what needs to be done, we expect, or do you expect, the INEC...
Even on the issue of the military we're talking about, you recall the Kaduna case, people were moving to a particular area where they had registered, all right, and the army prevented them, and until the thing became scandalous. But a senior officer came in and said, well, if these people are going...
PVCs.
Yeah, they have their PVCs and everything, and they want to... You can see that there seems to be some level of, genuineness in what they are doing. Let them go. That would have, raised a lot of, issues.
So putting a human face to it,
but eventually,
on the field, is good.
It was addressed by somebody who knows what it is. Sometimes the junior officers can be overzealous. They need to have those who knows what it takes to run a process like this, to always be on ground, to direct them, so that we don't get to that point where they begin to misbehave. Because even the night to the election, they were everywhere on stop and search. The army, not even the police.
Is that allowed by the law?
So that's why I'm worried, because I remember on my way home, around that, I live around Palm Grove, they were all over.
Because the military cannot be seen to be performing police functions.
That is it.
It shouldn't be.
But that is what we have brought them to be. They are everywhere. They do police duties, and part of all of that, to a large extent, will begin to reduce the value of this army. There are countries where mere seeing, a soldier in his attires is like you have seen the president.
Does that put us between the devil and the deep blue sea? Because if you have these two scenarios where the army is being deployed and then the police also deployed on the other hand, but the police is getting a phone call, and then they disperse the area where the elections are taking place. And then the army, on the other hand, are there to maybe do a little much more than what their modus operandi or their description of what they ought to do on election day. They go beyond it.
They don't even have any description. They have no role, no business in election. They don't have any role. So
But
the
we
question,
have
of,
always-
the question of going beyond their duty...
If the soldier is not okay and the police is
Now,
not okay, where does that leave us? Because you said in your submission that the police got a phone call,
Yes.
after which they left the area, and then the ballot boxes, the
that was
came
based on a report of an eyewitness. All right? Now, even at that, it is still the duty of the police. All we need to do is strengthen the police. We can strengthen the police, and they will do. You see, the truth is that when the police go out of Nigeria,
No, the question
they
is...
perform.
No, I'm
so
sorry.
we
I'm
should
sorry,
be able to
Mr.
call
let me
them to order.
let me get this straight.
Yes.
A phone call was placed to the policemen.
Yes.
After which they left.
Yes.
Leaving the space open for the thugs to cash in.
Yes.
How then do we work with the police to ensure that the security of people and the ballot is sacrosanct at times of elections?
Good. Now, what you need to do is that those who did this particular one that we're talking about, if they are brought to book, then it will address a future issue. So that, because I doubt if that would have come from the IG.
I really don't have a problem with that.
Yes.
But since 1999, we have had military in our electoral processes. Both the staggered and the general elections, we've not been able to do anything about it. When are we going to do anything about it?
So
is it that the military doesn't know the law?
No, it's not a question of not knowing the law. It's a question of how we have operated over the years. But I am thinking that we've come to a point where we need to respect ourselves and begin to do our duties the way they should be done. We do know that the duty of securing electoral, properties and what have you, is a civic assignment that the police can deal with. All we need to do is strengthen the police by way of training and discipline as well. Those who are involved in any form of, manhandling of the process should be called to order, should be dealt with according to the law. There are laws that deal with all of this.
But how do we draw the line here? Because don't forget, the president in that initial speech, which generated all the furor, said Nigerians needed to be respected. That he wanted them to go in there and vote in a respectable manner. So how do we then, reconcile what he said with the role that the military played?
Yeah, that is the challenge, as a matter of fact, because first, he was the one who actually told them to be there. Now, they are not doing beyond perhaps what he has asked them to do. Because what he said was that those who are snatching ballot boxes, but this is also what we're talking about, are not after those who are snatching ballot boxes, but even aiding people to do the same thing. So that is not what the president actually told them to do. But then, if he had not given them room to be there, they probably might not have been doing what they are now doing. They should be doing what they are employed to do. What we should do is to ensure that the Nigeria police, because when we talk about the Nigeria police, many other security agencies came to bear. The civil defense, you have other, security agencies that came to bear, the SSS, whatever they call them, they were all there. So why not utilize them? If it's a question of manpower, there's room. We must recruit, enough police to police the land. So until we get to that point, we will continue to have this scenario of bringing the army, for election purposes, which should not be. Generally, when the people see the army, there's this attitude that it's like they have come to intimidate them.
Rather than be comforted, they are
yes,
scared.
they feel more comfortable with the police. At least that one looks like they have come to secure you, even though they could still do other things. But it's not as horrible as that of the army.
Let's get to something on this one, because if I could follow up on this particular report coming through from our correspondent in Jigawa, where the resident electoral commissioner did tell him that the elections will be inconclusive if fresh elections are not conducted in some wards that had issues with card readers in Gwaram local government area of Jigawa State. But this may have been said to him by the REC. Do you think that that pretty much sums it up in terms of what we expect INEC at the national level to say? Or do we expect that, well, since REC has said it, it's the same thing, whether it's the REC or INEC at the national headquarters?
The determination of inconclusive elections is a decision that the Electoral Commission will take. And the Commission comprises the national commissioners, especially for those cases. Section 26 of the Electoral Act is very, very clear on the instances where elections may be cancelled. And when you look, or inconclusive, you look at section 53 that deals with overvoting as well as where you've got cancellations. But there's a condition that if the total number of registered voters in those polling units where the votes, where elections are cancelled, outnumbers the total number of votes cast. In other words, if the total number of registered voters can alter the margin of lead or can affect the result of that polling unit, then a return cannot be made in that election. A decision cannot be taken yet, except if, based on those polling units where either elections didn't hold or elections were cancelled, the total number of those registered voters. Where you have cluster of polling units in wards, then to a large extent they can potentially swing or affect the outcome of the elections, whether for senatorial or for National Assembly or even for presidential elections. But this is a very critical decision that the Electoral Commission has to make, but there are several factors that it needs to consider before taking that decision. And that is why it is important for the Electoral Commission to communicate with Nigerians the locations where the fate of those polling units that elections didn't hold yesterday, in fact, the number of those polling units and the fate of the voters in those particular polling units, they need to be known. We also need to know at the national level, and Nigerians need to know where election has been cancelled in specific places. We know that yesterday the Commission briefed the Nigerian public to say in 2 local governments in Rivers, I've also heard Anambra as well, but I think INEC needs to issue a document that clearly states these locations. Having a briefing, it's not enough, but a document should actually go out. So those who are watching and monitoring this process, as well as the stakeholders, the political parties, they need to know. Security agencies need to know. Those who are observing need to know. But more importantly, citizens who are the critical stakeholders need to know. But to take that decision, INEC needs to constantly meet. And that's why there's a situation room that INEC has at the ICC. I'm looking at all these issues and receiving the report. I think that what INEC needs to do is, if you look at the guidelines, it already creates about 10 or 11 scenarios as annexures to the guidelines that provides the circumstances where INEC and how INEC will manage the margin of lead principle. So it is very, very clear. We don't expect delays in taking decisions on whether an election is going to be declared inconclusive, as well as elections are going to be conducted or rerun or supplementary elections are going to be conducted, as the case may be.